So can you describe the process of editing a non-fiction book?
A nonfiction book, again, it's folks who are generally subject matter experts, and so they have something they're trying to. They're usually writing the book for professional reasons to have a calling card, make themselves more credible. So for that, I'm looking for accessibility. The most important thing is that it be clear. And honestly, with editing, period, the most important thing is clarity. Is the author saying what they're intending to say? That's why you're editing it. That's why you're messing with the words. Even the punctuation, everything's about clarity. So with nonfiction, yes, which can also include, I'll think of memoir as another thing over here too, but nonfiction business books, they're trying to present themselves as experts. So you want to make them look as good as possible, as smart as possible, as authoritative as possible. And so you're also looking for pacing of the book as a whole. So what I do for all my clients first is I do something called an editorial evaluation, which is where I take their manuscript, I read it straight through, I put copious notes along, the right column is always in Microsoft Word, and I put all these notes, and then I do a report that gives them, like 5 or 6 page report that says, here's what I recommend for this book, next steps. And that gives them a very clear idea about what I would do if they hired me to actually edit it. That's so that's the first step. With nonfiction books, I'm looking for things like pacing and clarity and voice, and is each chapter a good standalone thing? Are there interactive elements that they want to add to the book, like questions or exercises or whatnot, for a kind of a how-to book? And I'll get back to them with all that, and then I'll guide them through the process of making that all happen when we start on the edit. It's a different thing. It's about clarity, and it's super fun. And those folks tend to have more money. The nonfiction writers, the novelists, God bless them, are the ones who just don't have the money usually which is another reason why editing is. So a lot of them will hire me to do the coaching, and they'll do the editing. The nonfiction people, sometimes even the memoir people, will just hire you, because memoirists are generally successful and they're wanting to write about their life because they've been successful. So they generally can pay also. They'll just hire you to do it because they don't have time. They're usually busy people, and it's more cost effective for them to hire you to do it than for them to try to do it. Novelists, it's a lot more hand holding, and not the, disposable income, you might see with the other folks. I think that's about the process. So I start with the editorial evaluation, and I go from there once they've, understood what I've said and kind of in principle have agreed with it, or they push back and say, I don't like this, but I do like that. And then I just do that for them for the nonfiction.
I think it was surprising to hear how, you're almost responsible at some points for almost kind of ghostwriting, as it were. You're coming up with plot ideas. I imagine you're fixing holes in plots, you're developing characters. I mean, would you say that editing fiction for that reason is harder than editing kind of other types of?
Well, I mean, this takes a lot of creative energy, and you have to be able to, to be energized by that and not depleted by it. That's kind of my balance. I'm always balancing that. And there have definitely been times if I have too many books that require that creative energy on my plate at the same time, that could be exhausting, So because it's a lot, where's the mental work going? So proofreading, which I could basically do in my sleep, but I do a terrific job. That's my relaxing work. That's the stuff that I can do. And it kind of, keeps the cash flow coming while I'm focusing on these other books. So when I say I have 5 to 8 projects going at once, they're not all these ones that take a ton of creative energy. But having all those books lined up, all those project lines up, means at the end of the month, I can pay my bills comfortably, and it's all good. So just focusing on the one I feel might be exhausting, because even still, you can't, even a writer, I've written books myself. I haven't been successful at writing, but when you write a book, you can't write 8 hours a day. It's just exhausting. You couldn't do it. I don't know any writers that write that much. It's usually 2 or 3 hours a day, and then they take a break, and then, so that's part of it. Part of your business plan needs to address how much you can do in a day with your own mental energy and your own creative energy and space to get these things done.
Is it true that novel editors begin kind of as copy editors in publishing houses before working their way up to story development and character development?
Right. I mean, there's a million ways of entree into story development, and that is a great way to think of it, as becoming an expert on crafting a story. That is itself a skill that you can get at a million different ways. I don't know anybody who just, because I don't even think the big publishers are truly hiring copy editors like that anymore. They're pretty much now expecting the author to show up with a book that's done. That's even the big places, because they just want you to walk in. They don't provide all those services. There isn't like this, phalanx of editors sitting there ready to perfect your book for you. You have to bring it perfect. So a lot of authors are finding they have to do the hiring, and they have to find the people to do that stuff. That's where my echelon of editing comes in. I mean, I was doing a whole lot of book editing, proofreading, a lot of proofreading first, and some copy editing, which to me, those are different. So line editing is slightly different than proofreading. To me, line editing is more smoothing and, paragraphing and making it flow. Proofreading is really just mistakes, just catching the errors. And then structural editing is when you start to move things around. And then substantive editing, like theme and character arc and all that stuff, is even higher level, right? So my entree into that was basically screenwriting. I lived in LA for a lot of years, and I did a lot of work in the industry that, again, nothing famous, nothing big, but there's a lot of work to be done. And I did a job called script supervising, which is a terrific way to learn about screenwriting. And screenwriting itself is a great way to learn story structure, how to tell a story. And you can apply that to novel writing. And so that's basically what I do. All the screenwriting experience, there's a rubric called Save the Cat, which is a screenwriting rubric by Blake Snyder. And then there's a version of that's about screenwriting, but there's a version called Save the Cat Writes a Novel. And that is now what I use to talk with all of my novel clients. I'm like, get this book, read it. We will now have a common language, and I can talk to you about structure, how to structure your story. Because first-time authors just often haven't even thought about it. They haven't incorporated it. So the story kind of wanders, meanders, things in it that don't need to be there, stuff that needs to be there that isn't there, emotional beats. So I got good at that. I started getting good at that. And I was doing story analysis for screenplays for my friends, And then I happened to get the novel I was just referencing. I think that was one of my first novels. I also had an early novel that was a memoirist who wanted to novelize her story. And so I don't remember exactly how I got those clients, how I met them, but like chance favors the prepared, right? So like when they came my way, I was able to do the work and able to improve the book. I mean, that's the point, is can you improve this book? You don't want to mess with it if you can't actually improve it. You're not wanting to just put your stamp on it. You're wanting to actually improve it. So I do believe that the proofreading skills, the line editing skills are extremely important if you're going to make a life career out of this. You really have to have that eagle eye. You have to know how the language works and how a person completely fresh to something is going to read it, all the ways they could read it. But novel editing is, and then the other thing too is I don't green light. In publishing industry, there's acquisition editors, right? Who are looking for books, and they'll acquire them. They're not actually editing the book. They're just called editors because they're in the editorial staff. So they're green lighting books. I'm not ever doing that. People are always hiring me to make their book as good as possible. So that's the skill I bring to the table, is to improve the book as much as possible. And people have to trust you to do that. You have to really, I've got people will check my references or whatever. I'm not sure if this is answering the question as well as I could be, or whatever. But,
It's really, really useful. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You have to love just any words and making any words better. You know, to if I had like said back in the day, I'm only going to edit novels, you know, I wouldn't have made it. You know, I had to develop this whole portfolio of
That
things I can do.
brings me to my next question. So
Okay.
what do you know, what do you say to a student perhaps on a creative writing course or an English course, a
Mhm.
degree, or just any degree really, and they want to be a novel editor?
Mhm.
What's your advice to them, both from a practical standpoint, like
Mhm.
you mentioned script supervising, is that
Mhm.
something that they can realistically try and do when they've left a degree? Or,
Mhm.
you know, what's your kind of advice in this day and age for, you know, that for that young English student who wants to be,
Mhm.
who wants a career like yours? Where do they begin?
Oh, really well.
Is it that difficult? Is it impossible? What do they do?
It's like, I mean, you have to gravitate toward the words on the page and be eager to make them perfect as much as you can. And so you want to find a work you can do where you're editing like a lot, just a lot of words. I mean, I've, you know, the early on I was working for an organization called Book Surge, and I edited hundreds of books for them. It was pre-Amazon. They got bought by Amazon, became Create Space, which then became Kindle Direct Publishing now, right? So before they were bought from Amazon, I was one of their contract editors, and they would send me a book and I would just proofread it. And I, you know, hundreds of books. This was after having that whole career where I was managing editor of a website and everything. And now I'm freelancing and I'm back down to square one, it seems like, but I had a ton of experience. So my advice would be to edit as much as you can all the time. And that could be finding a website that needs someone to that's content heavy. They're publishing articles all the time. And you just say, let me just proofread everything, you know. Those that, you know, your first website probably doesn't have a lot of money, but your next one might. And you kind of so prove yourself as a proofreader first, prove yourself as a line editor, you know, as you get, and then you start to see, you might think the novel editing is your be all and end all, but it could turn out to be that you love journalism. It could turn out to be that you love, you know, I mean, there's a ton of work in like editing medical journals, you know, editing, you know, special niche markets that you get expert at. Everyone finds out about you, and then you can edit that. So the novel thing sounds good, but it could be frustrating because again, you're always working with neophytes, brand new writers, and you're always scrambling for the next dollar. So it's great to have a balance and to have a bunch of things.
So
Does
to
that
be,
answer that question?
yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
what you're really saying is to be a novel editor is it's almost like breaking editing down into arbitrary boundaries. You need to just be a good proofreader before you're anything. You need to
Yeah.
understand grammar,
Yeah,
language.
because you cannot. And I've worked with a lot of people who said they wanted to be an editor, right? And this is going to be my experiences with people that I've mentored, people that I tried to bring along, because I'm always looking for somebody I can subcontract just proofreading to, because I get busy. And the folks didn't want to put in the time. They think they worked on one thing and now they think they're completely, you know, good to go. And what you absolutely don't want to be is someone who's going to do damage to a novel, right? Or do damage to a book or a manuscript. You have to be sure that when you get the manuscript, you're not going to impose errors, for example, you know, and that's so you just really have, it's like being a surgeon, you know, you have to know how to use the knife and how to use the red pen and how to use the, you know, and becoming an expert in Microsoft Word is of course also important. Using the headers, using I mean, there's so many things. So there's a lot to learn, and you can get jobs. It's much easier to get a job proofreading. Say, let's say you pitch like publishing houses out there. Do you just need a contract proofreader? And they'll try you out for a couple books. You know, they'll give you a test. You have to pass the test, but they'll try you out for a couple books. And if they like your work, you'll get more. One of the business groups I was involved with, Business Networking International, is a great networking group. And they taught me that there's two different kinds of clients. There's the chicken and the egg. The egg is the one-off client. You got your one, you know, they got their one book and you're going to do one book with them and that's great. They'll pay you, but you're not going to get any more. The chicken is the client that gives you book after book after book. So that's usually a publisher. It might be an academic environment. It might be, a sales company. It might be that those tend to be corporate. They tend to pay a lot better, you know, all this. So the idea is to get a chicken, To get a chicken for a bunch of novels is unlikely. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I proofread a lot of novels for particular publishers, and occasionally some of those books need further editing that I will work with the author on.
Mhm.
But mostly it's like, the cash flow is about proofreading, line editing, having that skill that you can employ at the drop of a hat. And then every now and then you get the cream of the crop. I mean, my inspiring projects, sure, I have 2 or 3 inspiring projects every year that are really cool memoirs or really cool novels. But that's it. Meantime, I'm editing like 40 other books that year.
So to be a proofreader, is
Mhm.
it true that you always have to have an accredited kind of certification for that, or you can just know different? I mean, things like style sheets are
Mhm.
really important in your proofreading. Do you have to know?
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to know all that. You just have to know how that all works. Like every company, I work for one company that has this style sheet, work for another company that has this style sheet. I have to just remember as I'm editing this stuff that I use that style sheet and not this one. Which one uses the serial comma, which one says who or whom, and is okay with just saying who, which one is using the singular they and which ones aren't. I mean, some people are still, so it's like remembering all that. You get really good memory for those kind of details. And then you also get really good at forgetting stuff, meaning I couldn't, like the books I edited last year, a lot of them I just don't even remember anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just flowing through them so fast, So yeah, you learn the industry terms, but I've never had to be accredited. I've got references, I've got, and I can take the test and do well on the test. Almost always they're going to just give you a test and you have to do well on it. And then if you do, but they really expect you to do well. You have to be able to catch all the things. And that just comes from experience and doing it as much as you can. That's why I'm saying if you do you have a favorite website? In fact, one website I still work for, I was a fan of the website and I enjoyed reading it, but I was noticing typos. So I'd like to volunteer. I just literally volunteered because I just liked the website and what it was doing. And I still am a part of their editing team, this was 2 or 3 years ago, just because, I like the subject matter and I want to keep my hand in. So yeah, you're not the focus. The editor is like you are the behind the scenes support system for this author and their incredible ideas. And so it's not about, there's no glory or glamour, for the editor. It's the satisfaction comes from really helping those ideas shine. That's the reward of it.
Are internships a good way for students to try and get proofreading experience and editing experience?
They can be. Internships, of course, skew for the privileged, because usually you have to, if you're working for free, you got to be getting money somewhere else. So you've got rich parents or whatever, college students. I think it's better if someone can get paid if you're doing actual work that's helping people. And a lot of time internships in an editing environment, you're there to like make copies and stuff. They're probably not going to have you editing a book in an internship, right? So you maybe get to sit in on meetings and do clerical work, whatever. So I would suggest instead trying to get, if you're going to be working for free anyway, go someplace that's actually going to let you edit, like meaning actually proofread, actually correct something on screen, which might be like I say, a low price, a low rent website or whatever. It just needs that. So you just have, and you can also prove through that you're reliable. You can prove you're good to work with, that, you do what you say you do. The proofreading industry in general has a lot of people that think they can just do it. And so there's a lot of, unfortunately, unreliable people out there, who don't meet deadlines, who don't whatever. So if you could build a reputation where you are reliable, you meet your deadlines, you do what you say you're going to do, and you're improving the product all the time, that they know if they hand it to you, you're going to improve it and not, incorporate mistakes or mess things up. Then you start to build on that. And you move up. And like I said, I started in data entry when I was 22, data entry job for, do you want to hear this? $14,000 a year. That's what I was getting paid back then 40 years ago. Right. So, but you do it. I mean, for me, I'm just passionate about the words on the paper. I want them to be right. So it's always been I've always been okay with that, doing it from the bottom stages all the way to the top. You know, it's all fun. You know.
So you talked about your career and how you've worked freelance for how many years is it now?
17 years now.
17, yeah.
Mhm.
You clearly know a bit about working freelance. What's the most challenging aspect of working freelance, do you think?
Well, first, let me just tell you what's great about it. What's great about it is I work from home. I can travel Europe and still be working. I can pick up and move across country and nobody knows, you know, because it's all from home. It's all on the internet. I love being my own boss. So for me, so the work is great. You also can totally choose your work. You choose what you're going to get excited about. So all that, no question, is the best stuff ever. That's the best thing. Because I don't mind that. I don't need to be with a bunch of people all day long. Some people need that community, but I don't. My clients are enough community for me. So the difficulty becomes the business aspects of it and the cash flow. And that's simply it. You're paying for your own, you know, health insurance. You're paying for your own Social Security. All that stuff has to be, you know, coming off the top of what you're making. And so you got to have some business acumen as far as seeing yourself as employing a skill, producing a product, and you deserve to be paid, and you deserve to be paid well, because it's you know, you grow into that. Like what I charge now is way more than what I used to charge, right? Because I'm getting better and better. And, you know, so that is I mean, if there's a single thing that you're constantly, I would say, motivated by, it's the cash flow, because that never goes away. It never becomes something that you can just sit back and expect the money to flow in, you know. You know, having said that, though, it's definitely doable. It's like a game for me. It's like a little game. So, you know, if I'm going into what I can tell because of my schedule, I can tell I'm going into a slow period. That's when I reach out and try to get acquainted with a bunch of new chickens, right? And see if I can get more chickens in my stable. That's when I might ask this, or might, you know, volunteer for that, or I might do something like this. I happen to be in a quieter period right now, so I can do this with you. And these are the things that, I mean, I've had interesting serendipitous things happen because of opportunities like this. You'll have opportunities that happen. You should pursue those. And your career will shape. It's you know, that's the thing. I haven't unlocked the key to this. I think it will continue to be an issue for me until I retire. But it's not horrifying. You just have to have that business sense about it, you know.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about your job?
Biggest misconception is that it's some kind of glamorous, you know, hobnobbing with the intelligentsia, you know, like I'm going to be, you know, New Yorker level novelists are going to come to me to do my thing. You know, that may never happen for me. I don't think I'm going to get that kind of thing. You know, I don't need that. Thank goodness, you know. Other misconceptions are that it's, I don't know, that somehow you're not the center of it. You feel, you know, editor, it sounds like it's a powerful role, but it's really not this power thing. It's about the author, and it's about their ideas, and you want to be in service to that. So basically it feels like a service job. It doesn't feel like a powerful job. I'm not an acquisitions editor at a publishing house where they're greenlighting stuff. You know, I'm working on the projects that come my way with a decent amount of humility, and no glamour whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, you do get to travel now and again sometimes with clients. Sometimes you go to this and that, but with COVID, I haven't even done that much. So I don't know. What's the surprising thing is how rewarding it is. That's the part that you don't, you know, I wouldn't have known 17 years ago how rewarding it was going to be to have some of these books get finished and get published, and the author gets to tell their story. You know, I find that super awesome.
Are there any ways in which students could maybe try and edit a novel? Are there any kind of, you know, are there any routes in for that, or is it really just a case of kind of starting small at the proofing level and then building up? What would your take on that be?
Well, I mean, writing groups. It's great to be in a writing group, because then you're reading other people's. If you're writing and they're writing, a lot of editors are also writing, right? So if you're writing a novel, if you're writing short stories, even being in a writing group where people trade pages and read and critique, That's a great way to kind of be thinking. The other way is just to ask around, who's got a novel? Do you want me to look it over? And just offer it. Eventually, there will come a point where it'll become clear you can start asking for money to do that. Initially, you might not. Another thing is I would also, gosh, if I had to do it all over again, I would take that Save the Cat rubric I told you about, and I would go online and I would find screenplays, and I would read screenplays and try to figure out the structure of a screenplay, and just get a really good grounding in what structure is and what character arc is. So it's, that's not editing per se, but that's stuff you can apply to the editing when you're going about doing it. And also obviously read novels, like young adult novels are great to read for structure and story. Ask yourself that question when you're reading a novel: how would I edit this? Could this have been edited differently? Are they doing this the best way? But yeah, to get your hands on manuscripts and actually mess with them, that's, first you just got to ask around, and see who's got something they want somebody to read.
What's your take on websites like Upwork.com or, these,
I mean, I'm not on any of them because they don't pay enough. That's kind of the Book Surge thing. Book Surge that I started way back when, they actually paid really well. They were really respectful of the editing process. And then it turned, Amazon, God bless them, kind of turned it into a commodity, proofreading. And places like Upwork and stuff, I think you can charge a little bit and you can work really hard and you get a lot of great experience. You could probably churn through a lot of books, once you have a good reputation. You have to build that reputation and have a lot of people like 5-starring you or whatever, and before you could. But most of those folks are not expecting to pay, a lot of money.
No.
So you're doing it, I mean, I would try it. So if you're starting out, I would try it and just see how it sits with you. What you don't want to be doing is you want to be paid enough that you're enjoying what you do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I know when somebody, if I'm having to, if an author is nickel and diming me down to like some brass tacks amount, I know I'm not going to enjoy the edit, because part of the fun is getting the check, after you've done it, so, and if the check isn't big enough, I'm going to feel like, why did I do all that work? On the other hand, chickens are better than eggs for long-term stuff. So someplace like Upwork might be a chicken, and you get a lot of work from it. It's okay to get less because you got the money coming in on a regular basis. Yeah, I would try. So you're just starting out, I would try anything. Try everything. Try all the ways.
That's where I think students are feeling a kind of sense of hopelessness almost in this climate. They're seeing jobs, or they're reading job titles like, I don't know, editor of this novel, or they're seeing things at the end of novels, I'd like to thank my editor. And they're thinking, well, how do I even get into that? Do I start out as an assistant at a publishing house? Do I, where do I find a novelist to edit their work? And I think the simple answer is there is no magic formula. Maybe it's just about kind of mining the internet, mining your friends, mining your community.
Be sure you have a job, get like some food on the table sort of job while you're doing this. I got laid off from that managing editor job and had like 10 months of severance pay, right? This was back in the day when they still did things like that. So I had 10 months to kind of get a business going. And the first thing I did was I sold my ability to, all these people had little websites that they did themselves, and I wanted to do their testimonials for them. So I offered for like $50, I will call your best 3 clients, interview them, and write your testimonials for you. I created the smallest, cheapest product I could just to get the experience and to get the cash flow and to make the business work. And then, it just adds up, and you get more and more experience, and then you're able to point yourself at this and that, or that and this. It's all fun, truly. And if you can kind of get out of the sort of the glamour idea of editing novels, it's like I write screenplays, if you can get out of that kind of glamour and realize it's all hard work, it's all nose to the grindstone, and then just do it wherever you can, you might find your career shaping in an unexpected way, and that's okay. I am grateful I do have some novels to edit. That's kind of fun, but that's not the majority of my work, you know. But I'm good at it enough that I know I'm doing a good job for these novels, but I could not, you know, make a living at just that, even after all this time. So, you know, take the fun where you can, take the, you know, the creative stuff where you can, but learn the skill set and employ the skill set in any environment that you can.
I think you've pretty much touched on everything that might come up in this final question, but I'll just give you a final opportunity to sort of, is there anything that perhaps we haven't touched on? Is there anything at all that I mean, you've been building your career for 40 years now. Is there anything that you'd like to share that maybe we haven't, you know?
Oh gosh, I'm thrilled that you have a bunch of people that want to be editors, because I will say there just are not enough coming up. And I think, you know, through the ranks or however any of the folks listening to this shape their career, you are needed. It's important that people know how to do this. I know there's like even Chicago Manual Style just came up with an AI computer program that they say will do the proofreading, but I don't believe it. I mean, they might start it, you know, but they might whatever, but we still need actual people who understand nuance, who understand flow and voice and all this. I think that will always be the case. Maybe I'm fooling myself, but that's what I think. I think that so there is need of you right now, and there is plenty of work. You know, again, if you're okay with pointing yourself in different directions and not, you know, being married to like one kind of glamorous concept, it's and you can build the thing. I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm happy to talk with anybody further, and I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm available for further, you know, poking around if you want.
Thank you so much for that. Certainly an unexpected final offer, and I'll be sure to impart that to the students.
Think about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura. It really has been a pleasure to host you. Thank you.
Oh, great. You're welcome.